So today I'll be continuing with my scheduled discussion and point spread prediction videos. Today I'll be doing Mississippi State. Well, he's an Ole Miss fan, so we can't believe anything he says about Mississippi State because he's just gonna try to make them sound bad because that's how he wants them to be. Well, if you think like that, then you can click off, and I understand why you would think that because I am a fan of their biggest rival. But you don't have to be an Ole Miss fan to think that Mississippi State is becoming a terrible program and that they never were a good program, but they've gotten worse. And mm, last season, they've had a terrible season. They only won 5 games. Didn't even make a bowl game. They went 1-7 in the SEC. Their only win coming against a terrible Arkansas team that was even worse than they were. Mm, And they're watching Ole Miss move way past them as a football program. Ole Miss looks to be becoming elite, and Mississippi State looks to be becoming closer to Vanderbilt. Uh, and I hate to say, but I'm stuck being a student at the Mississippi State University because there's no other place uh, that has a an online degree in what I'm trying to get. Uh, but the school is terrible there. Uh, there's more that I don't like about Mississippi State than just the football. Uh, and so they, brought in Jeff Levy to be their head coach. He'll be their third head coach in 3 years, and they have a terrible roster this year. So they're gonna have to give him more than one season, and uh, they didn't even give this last coach they had a whole season. They fired him after 10 games, going 4-6 in that time. And they're probably going to be something like that at that point this season. So uh, mm, they can't be doing that again. Uh, and I almost feel sorry for him as mm, uh, mm, an Ole Miss fan, not so much, but he's a first time head coach, and uh, he will get uh, his first job at a terrible program, Mississippi State, and he did uh, a good job these past 2 seasons as Oklahoma's offensive coordinator, and I'm familiar with him because before he was at Oklahoma, he was Ole Miss's offensive coordinator for a couple of years and did a nice job there. So mm, uh, he's a good offensive play caller, and you would expect him to have their offense playing better this year than it was last year. Last year, their offense was horrible, one of the worst in the Power Four. They had several games where they didn't even score 10 points. Mm, uh, but still, it's not going to be good, I don't think, uh, because he just doesn't have the roster right now for it to be uh, like it was at Oklahoma or Ole Miss when he was their offensive coordinator. Uh, and we don't know yet how he is as a head coach either, uh, or how he is as a defensive coach. So they'll probably not be any better, maybe even worse on defense this year. And they're just going to be one of the worst teams in the SEC again, very likely. And some good news is on this schedule, now with the conference changes in schedule, uh, they won't have to play Alabama every year. They don't have to play them this year. Mm, Alabama uh, has been their own. Or they were 0-16 against them uh, mm, when Nick Saban had Alabama a dominant program. Well, Ole Miss was only 2-14 against them. Yeah, I know that. Ole Miss had a terrible record against them too, but at least they beat them twice. Mississippi State didn't beat them at all. Mm, And I know now Nick Saban's no longer at Alabama, but don't think that now Mississippi State is uh, mm, always going to have a really good chance at beating Alabama just because he's gone. Now that he's gone, uh, they might beat them, I would say, once every 10 years. But now that they're probably just going to be playing every other year, they might beat them once every 20 years now. Uh, but mm, it won't be a 100% loss now every year for them. Uh, and it's not like anyone had a good record against uh, Alabama during that time. Auburn had the best record against them, and they were 4-12 against them. Uh, but no one's done worse against uh, Nick Saban than Mississippi State. Uh, And some more good news about the schedule is they don't have to play LSU. And then uh, in the non-conference, they do get three easy wins on there: Eastern Kentucky, Toledo, and Massachusetts. And then their Power Four opponent in the non-conference. I know it's on the road, but it's Arizona State, who mm, mm, is one of the worst teams in the Power Four. They're probably going to be even worse than Mississippi State's going to be. So Mississippi State will have a good chance of going 4-0 in their non-conference games, which will really help their chances to get to a bowl game this time. Because now they'll probably only need to win two conference games. And in the conference, their first game against Florida at home, they'll have a chance in that one. Florida's not going to be very good. And then I know you may be thinking this is a great time for a first week off, right in between games against Texas and Georgia. But I would disagree with that because uh, Mississippi State has no chance of winning either one of those games against Texas and Georgia anyway. So it would have been better to have it before a winnable game. Mm, They'll be lucky if they don't lose those two games by a combined 50 points because those are right now looking like they're going to be the two best teams in the SEC this year. Mm. Mm. And then they've got two games at home in a row there uh, against Texas A&M and Arkansas. Texas A&M will be a likely loss for them, but uh, at home, they'll have a chance, I would say. And then Arkansas, especially at home, is a very winnable game for Mississippi State. Uh, mm, and then next in the conference, uh, mm, they have Tennessee on the road, which is probably going to be a loss. And then they have their second week off right before um, a game against Missouri at home. And if Missouri's like they were last year, this will for sure be a loss for Mississippi State. But I've said in another video that I kind of think that that was just a one-time thing for Missouri, so they might have a chance to win that one. Uh, mm, and some good news for Mississippi State is now they won't have to mm, lose the Egg Bowl on Thanksgiving Day. Uh, it's being played on Saturday uh, this year, so that's something that they can be thankful for, is not having to lose to their rival Ole Miss on uh, Thanksgiving Day. Uh, mm, they've lost three out of the last four Egg Bowls, and after this season, it'll be four out of the last five. Uh, mm, so now I'll move on to the prediction. Uh, So if you haven't seen how I do the point spreads, go back and watch the Ohio State video. I explained it in that one. Uh, but games in the green are games where I think they'll be favored to win by a blowout, 20 or more points, and I see two of those: uh, Eastern Kentucky and Massachusetts. And games in the blue are games where I think Mississippi State will be uh, favored to win by 10 to 19 points, so not close, but not a blowout spread. And I see one of those, Toledo. And then games in the purple are games where I think they'll be favored to win by about a touchdown at 6 to 9 points. And I see one of those, Arizona State. And then games in the pink are games where I think that they'll be favored to win by about a field goal, 1 to 5 points. And I see one of those, Arkansas. Uh, and then games in the black are toss-up games, meaning there won't be a favorite, or at least right now you wouldn't think there'd be a favorite. And there's one of those, Florida. And then games in the red are games where Mississippi State will be mm, a blowout underdog and so 20 or more points. And there are two of those, Texas and Georgia. Mm, And uh, the games in the mm, orange are games where there'll be a double digit underdog, uh, but not a blowout underdog, so 10 to 19 points. And there are two of those, Tennessee and Ole Miss. And uh, games in the yellow are games where uh, there'll be about a touchdown underdog, 6 to 9 points. And there's one of those, Missouri. Mm, And then uh, games in the gray are games where that they'll be about a field goal underdog, so 1 to 5 points. And there's one of those, Texas A&M. So Eastern Kentucky and Massachusetts, they should be favored in those by 30 something points. Those should be two easy wins for them. Uh, and then Toledo, I think they're one of the better non-power four teams, so that spread may only be a couple of touchdowns, maybe about 14 points, but it should be a win for Mississippi State. Uh, and then mm, Arizona State, Mississippi State should be favored in that one by 7 or 8 points. Uh, and mm, Texas mm, and Georgia, they'll be underdogs in both of those by probably somewhere in the low 20s. Uh, mm, and mm, Tennessee, they'll probably be about a 10-point underdog in that game uh, because it's on the road. And then Ole Miss, they'll probably be about a 10-point underdog in that one. Now, when you compare rosters between Ole Miss and Mississippi State, Ole Miss should destroy them, but it is a rivalry game, and those are usually closer than you would think when there is a big difference in how good the two teams are. So I don't think it'll be a huge spread, but should be a double-digit spread. Uh, and Missouri, because it's at home, uh, it's in the yellow. But if it was a road game, it'd be in the orange. Uh, right now, Mississippi State would probably be a 8 or 9 point underdog in that game. Mm, And Texas A&M, that one's close to being in the yellow. I almost put it in the yellow, but because it's a home game for Mississippi State, I decided to put it in the gray. They'd probably be about a 5 point underdog in that one. Uh, Mm, And then Florida, it's just in the black because it's a home game. The game was at Florida. Florida would for sure be favored, and they might still be favored even playing at Mississippi State because Florida, I've said they're not going to be very good, but I think they still have a little bit better of a roster than Mississippi State does, at least right now. It could change with the portal in the spring. Uh, mm, and Arkansas, uh, Mississippi State should be about a 3-point favorite in that one uh, because it's a home game for them. Uh, and that will be it with this video. Please subscribe and thanks for watching another video. And I'll make another one of these in probably about 2 days.